Welcome back to Brick and Brand, a podcast at the intersection of retail and entrepreneurship. We're your co-hosts, Delaney and Brettley Roach. Today, we're joined by an incredible guest and founder who, after decades working at a large corporate company, made the very bold move to become an entrepreneur and to start his own brand in what is a very competitive marketplace. We're so honored to welcome the CEO and founder of ROXOR to the show today and hear his story of how to build a company from the ground up. Don Short, welcome to Brick and Brand.
Well, thank you. It's my honor to be here.
So wonderful to have you on today. You are a wealth of knowledge and experience, and you will have more stories and insights than we have time for today. So we're going to get right into it. For the audience and anyone who is not familiar with the world of craft spirits, what is ROXOR and what did you see missing in the industry that made you decide to build this company?
My background is 31 years at Coca-Cola, so I felt as though I knew beverages pretty well. And at 55, I retired, and after about 6 months of playing golf, felt as though I wasn't what I was set up to be to continue the rest of my life. I was on a number of boards, nonprofits and for-profits, but I said to a dear friend of mine, Robert Del Grande, who's a James Beard awarded chef with a PhD in biochemistry, I said, I'm going to go do something and I'd like to build a brand. Is that something that would interest you? And he said yes. And so he handles all the science side and I handle all the marketing side. So in many ways, this was not uh, a world vision that said, I just want to go in the liquor business. This was more of, what do we already have knowledge of, which was food and beverage, and how could we apply what we know and try to bring something unique to a category? So we actually looked at beer, wine, and spirits, and I felt that the opportunity was greater in spirits 10 years ago, and probably still is today. And so that was the impetus of the idea. It was not a kid starting out saying, I want to go do something. It was just trying to um, leverage my past and
Yeah.
leverage Robert's science skills.
Yeah, that's incredible. I want to touch on the fact that 31 years at Coca-Cola, obviously global scale, corporate, and then you made this huge transition to build something of your own and non-corporate. What did that look like for you?
It looks like chaos.
All entrepreneurship
Right.
does, right?
I bartend still. I mow the grass. I drive the forklifts. So um, I always had a vision, and I moved maybe 10 or 12 times at Coca-Cola over the years in every position. But I always thought I might find myself going back to the original job. Now, I was a bartender when I was 20 at the Pinehurst Hotel in Pinehurst, North Carolina. I never envisioned God giving me that full of a circle, but now I'm
Yeah.
doing what I did 50 years ago, believe it or not. So I just think you have to be inquisitive and listen, I've had a long career and Robert's had a long career, so I worry less about the absolute success or failure in many ways. We really wanted to build a brand that would be differentiated from everybody else. And I think we've done that. I think what we've done is unique to us and it can stand on its own and something we can be proud of. So
I think it's so interesting that you mentioned I drive a forklift, I mow the lawns, I bartend, I do the dishes. And isn't that just the mantra of being an entrepreneur? Like there's no task or job beneath us.
it,
You do whatever it takes.
it
And
is.
that's, yeah,
And I didn't, I had not done that at Coke for all those years. So, I had done
right.
some hard tasks, but now you just have to wear all the hats and it's a matter of getting the job done. And actually it's quite rewarding. I'm thinking of yesterday, we had guests in from San Antonio. We had other guests in and my wife says, you have the greatest job now because the people you get to see and meet are from every walk of life. I had a minister yesterday that I got to see and it was
Mm-hmm.
their anniversary when they were here. So
Oh.
So it's really quite rewarding, and we think we can see the results because we're all five-star reviews on all of our everything that we do at the distillery. So that leaves us with some really psychic good feelings about we're taking care of guests.
Absolutely, as it should.
Well, and one thing I want to just say, Dawn, that's really inspiring to me, and I know for everyone listening, is I love that you basically reinvented yourself after you had retired from a very successful career. Yes, you had some experience bartending and with food and bev, but what you're doing is totally different than what you had spent a career doing. And so many people are not willing to take that leap and to say, no, I'm going to start over. I don't care if people think I should be retired. I'm going to build something new. And that's so inspiring. I do want to touch on your time at Coca-Cola. I don't want to brush over that because I know that you traveled the world with them and you lived in some very interesting places. Can you just tell us a little bit about like what were some of the places you lived? What did it look like at the company?
Yeah, I came out of university and started as a territory sales manager in Charleston, South Carolina, managing from Myrtle Beach to Hilton Head. So for a 23, 24-year-old, this was a pretty good gig to start.
Yeah.
Big territory.
Yeah, it was a fun territory. I moved 7 times in the US and ultimately ended up twice in Dallas, but I was vice president for the food service division, which calls on all restaurants. And at that point, casual dining hub was really to me in Dallas. You had Chili's here, you had Bennigan here, you had TGI Fridays here. So you had a lot of those. And it's a binary sale, so it's very interesting. Usually restaurants only have Coke or Pepsi and a fountain or a bar gun. And so it hones your selling skills very quickly and very fast, or you'll be eaten up. And their
Mhm.
cola wars were always real. And I suppose they still are today, but it was a wonderful learning base. I did that from 1977 to 1992 in the United States.
Okay.
2 years I would move. I think for young people, I always said I took every job that was offered, and it might not have been in the most glamorous location, and that helped me, I think, proceed and grow in that. And so then in 1990, end of 92, I got a call to move to Tokyo, and that's one of our most important markets at Coke. Um, and so we went, and I actually got married at the same time. I was 39, and I managed the sales side of Coke Japan, which is a huge business. 25% canned coffee, 25% tea, 25% carbonated beverages, and 25% all other. Huge business, just really gigantic. So that was a wonderful place to start an international career, and I learned so much because we launched about 100 products a year, and so that was
Wow.
the flow of that's kind of insane.
Insane.
Yeah. Then we moved to India, so if you don't think our family's flexible to move probably from the most modern country to the least
Yeah.
at that point, India is very modern now, but, in 1997, there was still a lot going on, and so I was CEO in India for 3 years, and we managed to consolidate the franchise bottler system, bought most of it back. But then more importantly, we owned the local brands, and we owned, of course, Coke and Sprite and Fanta. Figuring out how to use and market both of those became really, really important, and I think we were really successful in doing that. So, was there 3 years, then I became CEO for Africa and the Middle East, and that's sort of one of 5 operational jobs around the moving between Israel, the Middle East, and all of Sub-Saharan
Wow.
Africa was fascinating. So that was a great time. Came back to run a joint venture with Procter& and Gamble and Coke. It fell apart during valuation, and so, then I went to Minute Maid, which was headquartered in Houston, finished my career there doing a variety of things, and at that point, Robert was a consultant to me at Coke. I had about 20 PhDs doing interesting scientific work. We were actually doing clinical trials for beverages, and no one would think that at Coke, but products
Yeah.
like Minute Maid Heart-Wise would lower your cholesterol with plant sterol. So anyway, that
Mm,
that was another advancement of me learning some science side of life, that
Yeah.
that added to it. So I had a very fulfilled life and, fulfilled career.
Yeah, I could say so. How was that on your family? You said you got married right around the time you were in Tokyo. I mean, you talk about it like it's, oh, we moved to India then, and then we were in London, and just super casual. But I have to imagine that was a big deal to just pick up everything and move across the country again every couple of
It was a
years.
lot more it was a little, wilder than I'm making it appear. So,
I'm sure it
and
was.
because my wife worked for Coke for a while, and she came
Okay.
back to work for Coke, and so she's living in LA, I'm living in Dallas. We're dating 6 months or so. I'm 39, never been married. This is sort of crazy, and I get the call for Tokyo, and so I called and I said, "Would you like to get married and move to Japan?" Then
Oh.
she said sayonara. I say she begged me to go, but we got married the next Valentine's in Atlanta, where Coke is headquartered, and began a honeymoon in Hong Kong and then straight away to Japan. So, I say it's really good to start as a new family in a new place where you don't have everybody else, your whole family and all your friends around you, and we really did that. So,
Yeah.
yeah. In some ways, it probably brought you closer, like just
yeah,
being married and
yeah.
being in this new cultural and what a great partner. Anne is wonderful. And just the fact that she was so game for that. I mean, you
Yeah.
had the commonality of working at Coca-Cola, so she could see the vision, but that's not an easy thing, especially when there's probably a language barrier and there's cultural differences. But I have to ask, because I love traveling in other countries, what was your favorite place that you lived?
Probably move back to Japan tomorrow, and I've said that, I think, since I left. So,
Yeah, I
yeah,
hear that all the time.
best memories. I hopefully will be there this year to see one of my best friends there, and
Oh.
who I work with at Coke. So, yeah, that's sort of my favorite. I love India. I love all of Africa. I still do some mission work in Africa, but if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Japan.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Bring me back
awesome.
some sushi when you go.
Got it.
Brettley, you haven't been to Japan yet either, right?
No, I
Yeah,
haven't.
that's one of my top priorities. I've heard so many good things. And I'm calling you, Dawn, for all the recs, all the recommendations.
So much went into that career at Coca-Cola, so that's why I didn't want to skip over it. So you retire, you decide to launch this new endeavor, and on the outside, I feel like starting a new brand and a new company, it seems so glamorous and it seems so fun, but as entrepreneurs and as the people on the inside, we know that there's a lot of difficulties that go into it. And so, what were the first 6 to 12 months like when you were launching Roxor? What were you working on and what were the challenges?
So no introductions for 6 months, not even thinking about it. All we were trying to do was determine the category we wanted to go in, which we decided I felt wine was sort of so there are kind of two ways to think about it. Wine bottles and beer bottles are very similar, so it's hard to differentiate except with the label.
Mhm.
But with spirits, you are able to create your own package. And when we grew up at Coca-Cola, we always said when the lights go out, you'll know the Coke bottle by its contour shape. And
Mm.
so I always thought with a spirit bottle, I had this idea that I wanted it to be inspired by a building. And so that then I was kept thinking if I had a bar cart for my alcohol bottles, when the lights went out, I would want to feel the windows of the bottle and go, oh, that's that bottle from that. So I kept doodling with that idea. Robert had never really distilled. He had distilled some stuff for college for his PhD, but he simply started working with botanicals. And I'm sure we're dyslexic because our idea was let's pick a category that not many people would pick in the United States. So we picked gin, and we picked the category. But we're both inclined to like plants, and so he just started sourcing botanicals, all the botanicals, looking at traditional British gins, looking at what new people were doing. try not to rely on that, but be informed by that. And then I started this pathway of searching for a building that could inspire the package. And
Hmm.
so I would say that wasn't 6 months work, it's probably a year and a half work. But you have to remember, we weren't in a rush to launch. There was nothing that said we had to do it in a year and a half or 2 years. But by the 2-year point, we had a package. I had gone to Mexico City to meet 3 artisan glassmakers, brothers, who make many of the tequila bottles. So I had packaging sort of, some of the insights of that, but I'd never really done it, so that was exciting, and he then had figured out the recipe for gin, and then we sort of developed the idea of this umbrella that everything that we're going to be about is real plants. No flavors, no extracts, no artificial flavors, no sugar added. It I just thought the halo of real plants is so big, and I don't see it going away, that I just felt like we were in pretty fertile soil. So whereas soft drinks, food are required in consumer packaged goods to have nutritional panels and ingredient panels, the liquor business is a little more like the Wild West. You're not required to have a nutritional panel on the side. So I just felt like the use of real plants would put us differentiated from a lot of other people. And as people I could begin to talk to about it, maybe more women than men, they would like that idea a lot. And still to this day, a woman can come to the tasting lounge and she'll look at her partner and say, "Why haven't you brought me to a place like this?" It's like, this guy's talking about real plants. He's talking about on the wall. And this is the kind of place that I'm interested in. And so to this day, that I think that differentiated strategy has just been rung true.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. And in spirits, distribution is everything. For people who don't understand the spirits world, can you break down kind of the 3-tier distribution system and why that makes scaling so difficult and challenging?
Yes. It's very funny. When I came from Coca-Cola, our Coke bottlers are franchise bottlers. Franchise bottlers, like a McDonald's franchise, if they do a good job, you continue to let them grow and maybe get more territory. If they do poorly, you can take that franchise away. And so my insight going into this was, oh, I'll just work with distributors and they'll be like bottlers. And this will be not so hard because I'm going to have a great brand. And all the leverage really sits in my mind with the distributor, or it has through years past.
Mhm.
Because of the 3-tier system. The 3-tier system is there's a manufacturer or a supplier, in our case, a distillery. Then there's the distributor, and you have to have a distributor, and it's separate from the person making the product. And then there's a retailer, which is usually a liquor store. And then there's restaurants and bars. And in the state of Texas, for example, all of that product goes through that distributor and then ends up getting to the bars and restaurants and that sort of thing. And everybody takes a pretty good chunk of margin out of that. So I immediately we're fortunate. Southern Glazer's headquarters is here in Dallas. They may not be headquartered, but biggest operation is here. Republic National has been here all over the years, and we went with Republic National originally, and we're still with them today, even as they are contemplating a sale to Reyes from the beer side. So it's just not a. It's at Coke, I would just go have negotiations with Chili's. Chili's was with Pepsi when I was here in Dallas, and we converted them to Coke while I was here. And trust me, that's a big deal. It
Oh, yeah.
just wasn't so easy to go do that in the liquor space because you're the tiniest guy. Even though you may have a unique product, you have international brands that are pouring huge marketing dollars at distributors, and it's hard to get your share of mind or time,
Yeah.
space on the truck, or anything else. And
Yeah.
so, um, you have to buy glass in advance if you have a custom bottle, and that's, a large order. So it's a high cash issued business. So every facet of it, I would say, is not 100% conducive to small startups,
Yeah.
100%.
highly capitalized.
But you've been able to do it, and if right now you have gin, bourbon, and vodka, correct?
Yeah, yeah, and
And
yeah,
these products, they're in major retailers like Total Wine and Specs.
wine and your specs and goody goody. Yeah, so
Yeah.
we've made progress. I pivoted after about 6 or 7 years, actually during COVID. As it turns out, the state of Texas and the government gives you incentives for small business to own a distillery. I never really wanted to own a distillery. I wanted to build a brand, sell the brand, and trot on to something else. It's obvious I didn't grow up on the manufacturing side at Coke. I grew up in the sales and marketing side. So, um, but the incentive is so great that you can't afford not to have a distillery and a tasting lounge, because your first 100,000 proof gallons, you receive an 80% reduction in your excise tax. And so
Wow.
that's a huge benefit. And it was one I ignored, and then I shouldn't have ignored it. I should have even gone earlier. And then the icing on the cake really is that customers come here and you get to tell your story. And of course, as you know, nobody can tell your story the way you can, because it's your story.
Yeah.
And so when they come here and we get to sit with them and chat and take them on a tour and taste our products, um, we feel like we're organically building a brand. And long term, that's the best way to build a brand, probably. We were founded in 2015, but we didn't own a distillery.
Okay.
But we were distributed in the state of Texas. And yeah, so we've been around quite a long. I think we're Texas' first gin.
Okay. Wow. And I would love to see this beautiful bottle.
Yes.
I'm so
So
excited.
this is ROXOR. And again, the inspiration is actually a Frank Lloyd Wright building that's in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which sounds unusual, but it's a 10,000 square foot private home called West Hope, and it's the inspiration. The bottle doesn't look like it, but there's a certain window pattern that Frank Lloyd Wright uses. I changed it a bit, and I changed the branding area, but there's a conservatory in that home that, to me, reminds me of that bottle. And so that was the inspiration. It's called the Skyline bottle. It has its own name. It's a toast to the architects that create the skylines of our lives. I like skylines. And
I love that.
so that's that. And then
Wow.
the funny part was I had the bottle done and I had 100 names that were all around plants, botanic, botany, and things like this. And all of my words look good in cursive writing. And when I saw the bottle, I panicked because I didn't think cursive writing worked on this symmetrical bottle.
Right.
And so I had a quick conversation with Robert, who's really smart. In 2 seconds, he said, "Why don't you consider a palindrome? At least that's a strong word." So ROXOR, of course, is a palindrome. I made up the word on blank paper by starting with an X, adding a vowel. I looked at AEIOU. When I got to OXO, I said, that's XOXO's hugs and kisses. So that works. Finally, as I go through every consonant, nothing's happening. And then finally I hit the R and I went, oh, I like ROXOR. That's an interesting word. I turned the R's inward to hug the hugs and kisses. And I
Oh.
finally Googled the word. As it turns out, it's in the Urban Dictionary, which, as you know, can be good or can be really
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
It's at a euphoric state, so unbelievable, it makes you want to do double horns with both hands. So I said, that's really good. And then there's another little trashier definition, and this is it. This obviously is the word. So to help people pronounce it, we tend to say on the rocks, shaken, or stirred is a nod to the cocktail culture. So,
Oh,
Wow.
I
anyway,
never knew
That's
that.
another example of
incredible.
somebody coming, and they at least know we put a lot of thought in the package for them. And to us, getting the product right, getting the package right, getting the brand name right, that's my whole education at Coke, is that's how it
Mhm.
is. So
Yeah.
we really worked hard. And I think as people come to see us, we show them all the plants, for example, that are in the gin. And we use 300 pounds of real plants in one distillation. So, yeah.
Wow.
That's a
300 pounds.
yeah,
I will say
yeah,
the bottles are beautiful. I have so many of them at my house and they're delicious, but I almost use them as decoration because I've never seen a bottle like it. And now I'm
Yeah.
getting to hear how much thought you put into the design. It really shows.
thank you. But as you see, my wife does the flowers here, and so I have they're all liquor bottles, so that you'll see. And then just for of course, I wanted a new bottle when I did a bourbon, and I thought we're so tiny, no one will have a clue who we are if I pick a different building. So I simply took the gin bottle and I used a larger footprint, which allowed us to squat that bottle down almost like a decanter. So now it's on a liquor shelf. When someone sees in one category a bourbon or another category something that it's very clear that it's from the same company. And so it's
Right.
become important. And this one's the world's first botanical bourbon. So this is very unique.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
So that's
That is amazing.
with flowers, which is fun too.
Yeah,
I
those are
love
amazing flower vases after
Yeah.
consumed.
Yeah. All right.
I
I l
love the idea of being able to have a drink and enjoy a drink, but know it's not filled with artificial ingredients and feel good about what you're drinking. There's just nothing out there like that.
Right. Thank you. That's what we aim for. And it's again, it's hard to completely tell the story because I'm 72. I'm doing our social media, so that's why it's not very good. But we literally do everything ourselves, and but that's allowed us with the distillery now to be cash flow positive for a tiny company, to not have to worry about putting money in every 6 months, and to just really rely on growing it organically right here at the distillery.
Mhm.
So, we just had a shipment to San Francisco, so we're going into Napa and Sonoma, with a group out there that wants to they believe that they need more spirits in Napa and Sonoma, which is kinda funny, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't argue that's not right, it probably is right. So, we just shipped to San Francisco this week. So,
Wow.
Okay.
yeah.
Don, can you talk a little bit more about how you came up with the style for the bottle? I know you touched on the building in Oklahoma and a nod to the skylines and the architects, but I think for people building a brand, that can be so intimidating. Where do I even start? And how do I make something unique? And it's clear that you are a branding genius to say the least, but were you out traveling? Did you know you were looking for a building? Was
I knew I was looking for a building, and I knew
Okay.
I would not find it. I serve on the Nasher Sculpture Center's marketing board here. So to me, sculpture and um, buildings live in the same space. They're 360-degree pieces of art. And the Dallas skyline is lucky to have IMP buildings. Uh, there are a variety of buildings by the great architects of the world. And so um, I just kept thinking, let me start with the greats and just go down the list. So it's Google. It's literally picking IMPay or one of the greats and then going and looking at every image of every building you can find online and determining, could I envision this being the inspiration for a bottle or not?
Mhm.
Okay.
That's kind of how and so it's probably a 6-month process. It's
Yeah.
because you're not sure if it's right or not. And so I wasn't vetting this with many people other than my wife and Robert. I mean, this was kind of a close-knit idea. Um, and we needed to make sure that it would meld with the idea of plants and some would argue, well, does it really or does it not? But as you see us adding flowers to the vodka, steeping them with flowers, then they're just notes, even on the hang tag on that bottle.
Mhm.
I do think in the spirits business, this is one of the most important things you can do, and I could have gotten a $1 bottle or a 50-cent bottle, but it's generic, and the reason we aren't in beer or wine is that's a generic bottle already. I just felt like it's worth if we're gonna build a brand, let's build one that's highly differentiated. I'm happy with the results. The funny part, it's a square bottle, so I have to run it through the labeling machine twice, which means
Oh.
takes more time, which means again, obviously I wasn't on the manufacturing side at Coke and I was looking for efficiency, but I'm happy with the bottle design. So, and it's one
It's gorgeous.
the design.
Yeah.
So, you get what you just kind of put in the best you can and see how it comes out. And then you see how people react to it. And then that's the ultimate pleasure is if they react to it in a positive way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I love is that you took plenty of time, and maybe that's the message to the listener if you are trying to come up with something that's more creative and you're just kinda stuck, it's take time, look at a lot of options, continue to research and peruse, and at some point, you'll start to get a feeling in your gut of, "This is the direction I wanna go."
I think that's right. And if you any leverage of your background is going to help you. I did a dietary supplement at the same time I did this brand, and I knew a little bit about dietary supplements, but it wasn't I didn't know as much as I knew about really packaging ideas, and trying to do 2 brands at once is completely, insane. It's just completely too much. So, focus on some background that you have experience in,
Mhm.
somebody that your partner has experience in, that's really important. Otherwise, understanding the category, I thought beverages and alcohol were packaged goods. They were probably similar, and they were very, very different. So that was one of the things
Mhm.
is the go-to-market's quite different.
Yeah.
100%. I do wanna touch on, before we move on, just on the distillery for one more second. So you're located in West Dallas, just north of Design District, in a really cool industrial area where a lot of creatives are coming into that area. So to the listener, go check out the distillery. What are the hours? When can people stop by? Because you do have the bar component and then
Yeah.
the
Well,
distillery in the
it's
back.
6 days a week, usually 1 to 6, 1 to 7 daily. We do many events in the back. The back has 6,500 square feet, and that's where the stills are. So, this week we had a corporate event for about 60, and they had, their discussions early on, and then they did the tour and tasting. So, each month we'll do 6 to 8, events. They might be a birthday party, it might be corporate, you never know. We did Dominican Republic Independence Day and had 600 people here.
My goodness.
Thanks.
Wow.
Tomorrow we will have a coffee rave, which is something sort of new, and, I think we'll have 130 tomorrow. But
What's a
what
coffee rave?
I'm trying to do is expose consumers to what you do, and if you do that, you have the potential to tell your story. Yeah, we're very centrally located, just north of the design district. You'll see a 27-foot alcohol bottle, three-dimensional in the window, a 20-foot martini glass on the other side, and the bourbon bottle is in the gate. So they're little notes that'll tell you you're in the right place. So,
Wow. And Dawn, where did you start to see your first kind of real traction? And you talked a lot about people actually coming in and experiencing the product in person and hearing the story. I was a bartender for a short time and then was a manager of a restaurant for about 4 or 5 years, and that was my favorite part, is having the guest in front of me and being able to talk about the food or the alcohol that I'm serving them and why it's unique and the story behind it. And it's evident that Roxor has an incredible background in story. So where did you start to get your traction at the beginning? Was it truly word of mouth? Was it events? Was it social media?
it really even started in the liquor business in Texas. You can do tastings in liquor stores, and I would literally go for 3 hours to Total Wine or to Specs or to one of the chains, and you just stand there for 3 hours and tell your story, give a sample, and try to convince them to buy a bottle. And so
Mhm.
that was early on. I still to this day always sign bottles when people get a bottle, and just to make it a little bit more personal, I almost always give a free shot glass that has our logo on it when they buy a bottle. So there are all the little nuances that trigger a sale. And so that was sort of the first part to say, okay, I have people who haven't had gin in 30 years, and I watch them buy a bottle and I go, how good is this? Like they never had a good gin. And now finally tasting a gin that's taken a lot of care and a lot of, it's not a classic over the top juniper berry gin. So it's very unique. So those first steps. And then now as they come into the distillery, I think what they expect the tour. I don't think they expect great cocktails. And so we're wowing them with great cocktails. So
Cocktails are really good.
matcha sour with great Japanese tea. Our espresso martini, our bourbon espresso martinis are just out of this world. So the quality and the glassware, the coupes and everything, we just try to give you a first-class experience, more than you might have expected. And that's what I think. I see that every day as is happening, which just like
Yeah.
you had at the bar.
Yeah.
Dawn, it's only 10 a.m., but you're making me really want to drink, so you got to stop.
Right.
But I do want to say I give your bottles, all different kinds to my clients at Christmas, and I've been doing that for a few years. And you do sign every single one for me and you address it to the person. And I can't tell you what that little personal touch, it goes such a long way. And people are always like, what is this bottle? They never see anything like it. They always ask me about where it comes from and they notice that you signed their name. So that seems like a small thing, but it's really not. And it keeps me one of many reasons coming back as a customer. So
And you're taking something in my mind, taking a bottle of wine to dinner, everyone's used to doing that. Taking a unique bottle of liquor is something that's just a little bit better. I mean, we pack
totally.
every gift in an origami bag, and it's just so you can see the bottle through the origami bag. And so we normally say to the guests, this is your negligee for your gin bottle or your bourbon bottle. And they get a kick out of that. So yeah, all the little things you can do are all really marketing triggers.
Hmm. Dawn, if you could go back to the day one of building ROXOR, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Oh, well,
Tough
I
question,
laugh
I know.
because I tell this story all the time. Be careful what you ask God for. He may give it
Mm,
to you, and then
mhm.
you'll wonder, what was I thinking when I asked for this much? So
Yes.
it's a little overwhelming. When you're young, it's a little overwhelming getting a business. When you're old, it's also a little overwhelming when you start taking over everything and you don't know the pathways of distilling, for example. Robert comes for every distillation and he's great at it, and I'm his backup at it. But you just have to I would just say, if you can bite off chunks at a time, because sooner or later you have to go in the deep end. But if you can, build yourself, build your muscles to get ready, or build those skills to get ready, because the deep end can be really scary. And
Mhm.
Mhm.
I had a whole career to rely on. The nice part is a 30-year-old sometimes is just carefree and going for it. And that's another good way to look at it. But the more the more you can learn before the deep end, to me, that would be probably a good piece of advice for somebody. And don't be
Absolutely.
afraid to fail, by the way. Like, in many ways, I don't think we've succeeded in I think we've succeeded in building a brand. I don't think we've succeeded in building the distribution that we could have right now.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm okay with that. I have to look back and say, just be okay with that. I didn't
Mhm.
spend $20 million to know that it might not work.
Mhm.
Right.
I managed
Right.
it. I'm cash flowing. We've got a nice business, a larger company with big distribution leverage over the distributor could take our brand tomorrow, drop it in their portfolio, and it would take off. I have no doubt it would take off. So,
Mhm.
and that would probably be what we would think about longer term, is how to exit, not how to stay in and try to go. I mean, sorry, but I've done a lot of distribution at Coke. It's my idea at 72 is not go try to figure that out for
Yeah.
the next 10 years of my life.
Of course. Yeah.
And that kind of segues me into my next question, Dawn. What do you see on the horizon for Roxor? What does the next few years, 5 years plus, look like? And what are some of you and Robert's goals as you continue to grow this brand?
Yeah, we're staying true to sort of this plant idea, and so we have a few products that we want to still come out with. And I'm applying for a couple of licenses now on certain brands. We make a unique product here that is a house-made almond liqueur, and it's just a beautiful product. And it goes so well with our bourbon. Every day, someone says, "Can I buy that bottle today?" And I go, "No, we're working on it, and we have to go get approval for the label and the formula, and give me a couple of more months." And so that I know we have a testing lab here because consumers walk in and they'll try something and they'll go, "Oh, wow, that's really great." So we'll build that out a little bit more. We'll continue to refine the brand. We'll look for partnerships of bigger companies that can take and drive distribution with it. We're direct to consumers in about 40 states now, uh, with a legal system, so that works. And I think direct to consumer should continue to keep growing. The whole industry of spirits is working hard. We should have every right wine has in direct to consumer shipping, and so
100%.
yeah, so I think there's a big campaign working on that now, how to make that nationwide and legal.
Hmm. A lot of still great things on the horizon for Roxor. Okay, we're going to transition into a really fun segment towards the end here called Deal or No Deal. And it's a rapid fire. Basically, we just ask you a question. It's a scenario, hypothetical. Maybe it's happened to you in real life.
Right.
And you just tell us, deal, you would do this, or no deal, doesn't work for you. And it's just kind of the first thing that comes to mind. So it's meant to be really fun.
Good.
So the first one, someone offers to acquire the business earlier than you expected, life-changing money, but you're not done building. You still have other goals for it. Deal or no deal?
If I was 30, I would say no deal. At 72, I'd say deal.
That's totally fair.
No, that's fair. Honesty
Yeah.
is good. Okay, number two, you're offered capital that solves a lot of problems, but it comes from a partner that you don't fully trust.
No
Deal
deal.
or no deal?
Well,
Sounds like you speak from experience
Yeah.
on that.
you'll find out. It's not all money's the same.
Yep.
So,
Yeah,
and
so
when
true.
money, hopefully you're getting experiences there that are more than just money. I would just urge
Mhm.
any entrepreneur, what are they bringing other than the money? Because the money you should be able to get anywhere. I mean, I know at the end of the day, you don't feel like you can when you're in that midst of it and you're running out of money.
Yeah.
The expert,
That's a great message, I think, for the listener, the
Yes.
entrepreneurs listening, especially the young people
yeah.
who are maybe needing that influx of cash into their business to be selective about who they work with. The next one, the market is pulling you in one direction, but your instinct is telling you to go the other way with the brand. Deal or no deal?
Uh, Actually, for me, that's probably a deal. I kind of, I've even asked Robert not to go. Like, we haven't been to Kentucky. This is insane. As the two of us haven't been to all of the beautiful distilleries there to learn from them. I've just said, even on, I mean, the world's first botanical bourbon, how crazy is this? So I said, just don't go rely on what everyone else is doing. Any
Mm,
I've never, though, been a fast follower. That's not how I wanted to build a brand. I'd rather build a unique, differentiated brand and let it stand on its own. So
mm,
people
love
make
that.
lots of money as fast followers, lots and lots and lots of money as fast followers. And if that's your strategy, stay with it and go with it. That's just not who I am.
Yeah. And I think that's obvious with what you've built and how incredibly unique it is. I love that. So, our last one here, you can become a mainstream brand, but you risk losing what made you special and unique in the first place. Perfect segue. Deal or no deal?
Oh, wow. Maybe.
Maybe.
Depends. Yeah. That's fair. We'll accept that.
Maybe. So, depends on how it works. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
that's a
anyway,
pretty broad question.
those are good questions, and I'll just say for your young people listening, I get asked a lot, and I do some mentoring in some different groups, but having a mentor is really important, and
Yes.
having the courage to listen to difficult advice is important. So, as your listeners go through that, I'm pretty easy to get to have a conversation with, or you can always come by the distillery and have a drink with me, and I'll sell you a bottle and talk to you about what I think. But for young people, I always said, even as corporate, if you get the chance to leave the United States and understand what it feels like to be a minority in a different country, there's almost nothing like that for you personally. And even as someone who was almost 40 when he went to Japan, and there's less than 1% of Americans in Japan, nothing can help you. Nothing can humble you more, or nothing can help you more than learning some of those things. So, young people, I just encourage you to go. I still always believe it's great to get some corporate experience, 3 to 5 years, and then go do your entrepreneurial idea. That's a
Mhm.
perfect pathway.
I love that. And that's a great segue. Where is the best place for people to find you? Are you active on social media? You have a beautiful website.
Yeah.
What's the best, most effective way to get in touch?
Website, that's actually my number, my email there. That gets directly to me. Social media, I do it myself. You can message me there on Facebook or Instagram. I'm not a hard person to find out.
Well, Dawn, this has been such a pleasure talking with you and getting to learn more about you and Robert and what Roxor is and what it stands for. And I think there's
Mhm.
just so many valuable takeaways from today, down to the nitty gritty of branding and the little fine touches that maybe you think are insignificant or minuscule, but they make all the difference to the consumer and your audience. And traveling and humbling yourself and learning different cultures and just so many valuable things that you talked about. So, thank you very much for your time and your insight and your wisdom and sharing that with us and our listeners. We're really grateful to have had you on Brick and Brand. And thank you very much. Everyone, go check out Roxor and visit the distillery and the bar.
Right. Thank you both. What you're doing is great. I admire you both. And just keep it up. Keep pushing.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Dawn.
And I
Thanks.
will be there very soon to come visit your location. I can't wait. So,
Well,
and get to meet you
thanks
in
again.
person.
Best wishes.
Thank you. And we'll see you next week on Brick and Brand.